was some concerning posts that were made on
Facebook.
On Facebook, yes, sir.
And they sent you guys.
They did.
I don't think I committed a crime. I may have been an asshole, but
That's not illegal.
A Tennessee sheriff had a man jailed for 37 days for posting a meme that he did not like. And now the taxpayers in his county are on the hook for $835,000. What was the ultimate resolution of this lawsuit?
We are very pleased to have secured an $835,000 settlement on Larry's behalf here. This was an outrageous violation of the Constitution. I mean, no American should experience this injustice of being jailed for a political meme on Facebook for even 10 minutes, let alone 37 days. We're really hoping that this result sends a powerful message to law enforcement to respect the Constitution or be prepared for a heavy price tag.
But the sheriff who did it isn't sorry at all.
Sheriff Nick Weems sent us a statement saying, in part, the defendant's online actions placed fear in multiple residents and we were asked to investigate. The sheriff's office charged the defendant based on a Tennessee law that went into effect in 2024. The sheriff's office had nothing to do with the defendant's $2 million bond, nor his 37 days in jail. That falls solely on the judicial system and the defendant's attorney.
In 2026, we have a word for that, or a phrase, whatever. I'm not sure if it's one word, but gaslighting. A couple of months ago, I told you about the story of Larry Bushart, who spent 37 days behind bars simply for posting a meme in a Facebook group.
They said that something was insinuating violence, and they may be in contact with you.
that's fine.
But he wasn't intimidated. He knew his rights and he didn't back down. So then the sheriff obtained an arrest warrant that he knew was false and had Larry arrested and put in jail for over a month. In America, we do not jail people for political speech. Yet Larry Bushart spent 37 days behind bars simply for posting a meme in a Facebook group.
This is what they charged him with.
Okay.
Threatening mass violence at a school.
That video was a collaboration with FIRE, a national nonprofit First Amendment advocacy organization who had just filed the civil rights lawsuit against Perry County, Tennessee, Sheriff Nick Weems and investigator Jason Morrow for multiple constitutional violations that caused Larry to sit in jail for 37 days unconstitutionally. He's arrested, $2 million bail, and what happens? He just sits there for 37 days?
Pretty much.
If you want to know more about just how bad the sheriff and investigator Morrow screwed up here, I'll post a link to the first video in the description below if you haven't seen it yet. Our personal information is all over the internet and it's used against us not just by the government but by private corporations and by AI, and it's only getting worse. You have to stay on top of it 24/7 and constantly get all of this stuff removed. Fortunately, I have software that does this for me, and you can too. Set up an account with the sponsor of today's video, Incogni. Incogni tracks down and removes your personal data from multiple sites, including online directories, people search sites, and even commercial databases. The process is fully automated, so it will continuously remove your data from all of these places. As of today, Incogni has removed my personal information in 977 different places online. But I also use the custom removal feature available in the unlimited plan and the family unlimited plan to take down everything that's exposed about you online. So check out Incogni using the link below or go to incogni.com/civil for 60% off. Incogni helps wipe yourself from the internet completely. They can't harm you if they can't find you. Now let's get back to this video. Sometimes these civil lawsuits can take years to reach a final resolution, but this one didn't. It was just settled, with the parties mutually agreeing to a settlement, which was just announced in a press release on FIRE's website. That agreement is that Larry Bushart will receive $835,000 in exchange for dismissing his lawsuit.
Mr. Bushart says he is pleased his First Amendment rights have been vindicated. While he was in custody, he lost his post-retirement job, missed his anniversary, and the birth of his grandchild. Now, Bushart says he is looking forward to moving on and spending time with his family.
Despite costing taxpayers in his county almost $1 million due to his total disregard of Larry's constitutional rights, Sheriff Nick Weems remains defiant, blaming everyone but himself.
The sheriff's office had nothing to do with the defendant's $2 million bond, nor his 37 days in jail. That falls solely on the judicial system and the defendant's attorney.
I got a chance to talk to fire attorney Carrie Davis, who is one of Larry's lawyers, about the case and about the settlement. What was the ultimate resolution of this lawsuit?
We are very pleased to have secured an $835,000 settlement on Larry's behalf here.
Did the sheriff ever accept any accountability for his actions in this incident?
No, the defendants denied liability or wrongdoing in the settlement itself, which is pretty standard for these kinds of agreements, but they didn't admit any wrongdoing.
I saw that the sheriff had made a public statement about the settlement. Is that something that you guys are prepared to respond to?
So we issued a joint statement as with the sheriff's office as part of the settlement, which is available on our website if people are interested. We obviously support the sheriff's right to speak his mind, just as Larry was to speak his. But the fact that Larry spent a single night in jail, let alone 37, falls squarely on the sheriff and the investigator's decision here to turn Larry's political speech into a crime.
Why was this case important for you guys to take on in the first place?
This was an outrageous violation of the Constitution. I mean, no American should experience this injustice of being jailed for a political meme on Facebook for even 10 minutes, let alone 37 days. So I think, as a principled defender of free speech, it was important to us because of how, extreme this was. We do this because we care about the principles and we care about the Constitution, and we're a pro bono organization. So Larry never, was charged anything from us. And so we do appreciate people's donations and support.
What was Larry's reaction to the settlement? Was he happy with it?
Yeah, he was. I mean, he never should have experienced this to begin with. So he didn't ask to be jailed for 37 days for his speech. But given that he faced that injustice, he's pleased with the result.
How do you value that 37 days in jail? I've settled false arrest cases before where the insurance companies who are valuing the case are like, well, we will agree to give you at most like $30,000 per night or something like that, or X amount of dollars per night. And I think the ones that I had litigated generally like 1 or 2 nights, 3 nights, something like that. Was there any discussion or back and forth that you can share as far as how do you value somebody spending 37 nights in jail?
I take your point. It's a little bit of an abstract kind of question of how do you value something like that? I can't get into the specifics of the settlement negotiations themselves, but I do think that $835,000 is significant, and we're pleased with that number, and Larry's pleased as well.
It's like there's 2 ways to do it. One is you look at the individual and say, all right, this is what his lost wages are, and this is, how difficult it was for him away from his family for each of these days. And then I guess the other way is you can go through other similar cases that have settled or gone to verdict around the country and say, look, this is what this jury verdict was, and it's sort of similar to this one. And that's kind of hard to do because a lot of these cases settle. And unlike here, I mean, it's good we know the settlement amount. But in a lot of places, like you see the news reports where the lawsuit was filed and then just nothing. Because the public never hears what the settlement amounts were, and other lawyers never hear what the settlement amounts were, and so then it becomes very difficult to settle, find a valuation for these types of cases to try to settle them because there's just almost no data on, what they're worth.
Part of Fire's mission, we litigate these cases in court, and we also have, as part of our mission, to persuade the court of public opinion about free speech. So talking about the case and talking about the settlement is kind of part and parcel of the advocacy that we do. And so we are hoping that this settlement can be kind of an example, for law enforcement to kind of understand that these are serious violations.
The sheriff can say what he wants to say, but It's like, trust me, no government entity is agreeing to an $800,000+ settlement if they don't internally believe that they did something wrong.
We certainly maintain that Larry's rights were violated. Of course, they can decide to not admit liability in the settlement itself, which is what they did here. But we maintain that Larry's rights were violated.
How do you say to your constituents, I did nothing wrong, but I also agreed to pay the person I did nothing wrong to almost $1 million?
Yeah, it's a
And also reelect me next time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an elected. The sheriff is an elected position, so.
Yeah, I mean, we have in 2026 we have a word for that, or a phrase, whatever. I'm not sure if it's one word, but gaslighting. Obviously, the one thing happened, but I'm going to tell you something completely different and just lie to you, essentially.
I mean, at the end of the day, the insurance company is literally writing the check, but at the end of the day, that comes down to taxpayers who are paying for these insurance premiums. So it's something that people should, be upset about, in my view.
We, the people, have very few remedies against our government officials when they violate our rights. Actually, we really only have one remedy. We can sue them for money damages under the federal statute 42 U.S.C. 1983. And even then, they can assert qualified immunity, so it's not easy to do. That's all we've got. Of course, they could be prosecuted by other government officials for violating the law, but we have no control over that. They could also be fired by other government officials or otherwise disciplined, but again, we have no control at all over that. All we, the people, can do is sue for money damages. Here, the end result is about as best that is in our power to achieve: a substantial payment of money damages for rights that were violated. That's a win, but only a partial win in terms of accountability and justice. Here, Sheriff Nick Weems is lying to the public, claiming that he did nothing wrong, blaming the judicial system, and even blaming Larry's criminal defense attorney. He claims that it wasn't his fault that a $2 million bail was set. Wait, what? Why was bail set in the first place, and what was it actually based on? It was entirely based on the arrest warrant affidavit submitted under oath by investigator Jason Morrow at Sheriff Nick Weems' request. That affidavit was full of lies and omissions that directly caused Larry to sit in jail for 37 days. The biggest thing was that investigator Morrow omitted from his affidavit the information that the meme posted by Larry referred to a shooting that occurred in Iowa nearly 2 years earlier in January of 2024. The affidavit falsely represented to the court that Larry's protected First Amendment speech was a threat to commit mass violence. In reality, the sheriff knew that it wasn't.
Where is the threat in there, Sheriff?
Right here?
Sheriff Weems says some in his community took the reference in the Trump meme to Perry High School to be a threat to shoot up Perry County High School, which had recently had to deal with a threat from a student.
Whenever you come to a Perry County page, okay, that is set up to let people know what's going on in Perry County, and you post this talking about Perry High School shooting.
It doesn't say Perry County High School.
It says Perry High School mass shooting one day after. Okay, that led people to believe in our county that he's talking about Perry County High School, because it doesn't say Iowa either.
But you also knew this was an existing meme that was already out there on the internet.
Correct.
And so it's clear he's not talking about Perry County High School.
We knew. The public did not know.
I'll post a link to the first video in the description below. There's no point in rehashing it all again in this video. But the point is that police officers cannot just blame the courts and pretend like they weren't involved, because they are responsible for what they submit to the courts. When they lie and they make material misrepresentations, it causes otherwise valid arrest warrants to become invalid, and now they can't hide behind them. In Franks versus Delaware, the U.S. Supreme Court held that if an officer knowingly and intentionally, or with reckless disregard for the truth, included a false statement in the affidavit, and that false statement was necessary to the finding of probable cause, the warrant is invalid. Why did the sheriff agree to an $835,000 settlement even though he clearly did not want to? because had he gone forward with this litigation, this is exactly what would have happened. For all the reasons we discussed in the first video, that warrant would have been thrown out by the federal courts, and Sheriff Weems would be exposed, having nothing to hide behind. Now he's running for re-election in Perry County, Tennessee. Remember that those who don't learn from their mistakes are doomed to repeat them. If you have friends or family there, you may want to make sure that they are fully informed about all of the documented misconduct of Sheriff Nick Weems. Thanks again to FIRE for sharing the case with me. If First Amendment rights are important to you, check out their website and consider donating.
Something that's distinctive about this case is the outrage that it generated. We've been heartened to see kind of across the political spectrum, agree or disagree, people kind of understand the principles at stake here.
The last time I met with law students, I told them I think if I had to do it over, I would work for some sort of nonprofit law firm where you get to do interesting work all over the country.
I love it. I think it's a dream job personally. So if any law students are watching, I would encourage you to pursue, what you care about, causes that you care about.
I have no doubt that I will be covering more of their cases, and you can follow along by subscribing both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. You can follow me on X and the other socials at John Bryan ESQ. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.